Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tanner's Favorite Things. I'm Tanner Knight, and today we are going to explore this Pearl Masters Maple drum set a little bit more. So I just picked this set up yesterday, and I didn't know very much about the Pearl Masters line other than it's kind of their upper middle tier of drums. It's not the Pearl Reference or Music City or one of those higher end lacquered kits that I believe might still be built in Japan. Again, I'm not an expert on Pearl, so correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe those are built in the Taiwan factory as well, but these Masters behind me are built in the Pearl Taiwan factory, and they're from somewhere between 2008 and 2010. I can't find an exact date, but I looked up the colors in all of the Pearl brochures from the era, and they made this orange sparkle fade color between 2008 and 2010, and then it doesn't show up after that. So that makes this a pretty modern kit, but it's not a brand new kit. It's still over 10 years old, and it's in fact approaching 20 years old in the next 3 years potentially, but it's at least 15 years old. So it's not vintage, but it's not new, but it's still kind of in that modern vein with the sizing, the construction, and the hardware. So if you haven't checked out the initial video where I just put this thing together and play it for the very first time, I'll link that below. But today, we're gonna make this drum kit sound really, really good by using this. This is the TuneBot, which is a digital tuning mechanism for drums. If you are familiar with the drum dial, it's kind of a similar concept, only the drum dial measures the tension of your head, and this actually measures the frequency of the pitch being exhibited by your head. And it measures that pitch at whatever spot you hit it, so you can really dial in the tension of that batter head and get a very repeatable tune time after time. So before we do that, let's just get a quick baseline of what this kit sounds like today without any tuning. I literally just put these on the mounts and started banging away, and they sound really freaking good. But I'm not happy with the kick drum just yet, and I think that the toms can probably get a little more resonance just with a quick tune, probably more so on the reso head than the batter head, but we're gonna address both and hopefully make this kit sound really, really good. So let's get a quick refresher on how this kit sounds on its own without the TuneBot currently. I'll play each drum individually, and then we'll just do a short groove, and then that'll give us a baseline to test against. So here we'll start in snare, tom, 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 kick. And just to refresh your memory on the sizes that we have a 22 by 18 inch kick, so a little longer than I'm used to, but our toms are 10 by 7, 12 by 8, and 14 by 14. I'm fairly sure that the snare is a 14 by 6.5, but it could be a 6 inch. Again, we'll have to measure that. But the matching snare sounds awesome with this kit. But let's go ahead and get a tune on all of these drums using the TuneBot, and I'll walk you through that real quick, and then we'll get a comparison. All right, so the way that the TuneBot works is that it clips right onto the rim of any drum, a snare, a tom, a kick, you name it. It just clips right on, and you don't move it. You just leave it in one spot, and you hit around the drum by each lug, and it will give you the frequency that that lug has, or that it's tuned to it currently. And I kind of like a looser snare. I'm not one to crank my snare up to as high as it'll go. So I typically like around a 300 hertz. TuneBot recommends 299, so we'll go ahead with that number, and we'll just tune each lug to 299. And I do have this set to the top. There is a bottom and a fundamental frequency, which we'll check out here once we get each lug tuned up. But let's go ahead and hear what each individual lug sounds like and what it reads on the TuneBot. 290, so that's pretty good, that's pretty close. 289, 288, 286, 289, 290, 290, 287, 287, and 289. So it's in a very tight range. This thing is actually tuned pretty well for not having seen one of these in a while. So I want to raise the pitch just about, 10 hertz on each lug. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And the thing about these lugs is it doesn't take much to affect the pitch in either direction. So I'm just going to go ahead and tighten each one about 1/8 of a turn and see if the collective tension will raise each lug a little bit more. All right. 296, 296, 95, 93, 96, 97, 97, 94, 94, and 96. So it looks like these two here could use, well, every single one could use a little bit of tension, but not a lot. We're just going around just a little, 20th of a turn here. 306, so we overshot that one. 306, 304, 303, 305, 307, 306, 304, 303, and 305. So we actually overshot it a hair, so let's just back each one of these off a tiny, tiny bit. And you'll notice that just these infinitesimal little turns will affect the pitch. It's really close, and I would honestly be okay with that in the real world, but since we're doing a demonstration here, I want to get it as close as possible. I would say if your threshold is within 5 hertz around the drum, each lug is within 5 hertz of one another, that's a pretty good option. There we go, 300 even, 299, 98, 97, 99. Let's just bump this one up a hair. 300, 300, 298, whoops, 297. Let's just bump that one back up. 299. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and get the fundamental pitch by hitting down, and now we hit in the middle. 231 for our fundamental. And just so that you know, the TuneBot recommended tuning range for a 14-inch snare is between the 3E, which is 229 or 230 hertz, and all the way up to 3A sharp, which is 356 hertz. So we're right in the middle of that, and that tends to be my preferred range for a snare. 231 for the fundamental, that's perfect. So we're gonna rock with that. By the way, I have a foam brick underneath here, so you have to muffle the opposite side that you're tuning, or else it will interfere with the pitch reading capabilities of the TuneBot. So you have to muffle the Rezo head if you're tuning the batter head, and vice versa, which we'll do here right now. So for the Rezo head, it actually recommends a much higher tuning. It starts at 343 hertz and goes all the way to 400. So again, I'm gonna aim for kind of in the middle, and probably 378 is the corresponding frequency that I'd like here. So we want 378. What I've done here is raised the snare wires off with a stick, and that way nothing is touching the head to interfere with the tuning. So this one, it says 400, so that's kind of high. We'll have to back that down. 241, that doesn't make any sense. And if you do get a weird reading, you hit this filter button and it will filter out all of the things that it doesn't want to hear. But this one, 200, weird, that must be low. So that's also 218, 200, 241, 210, 211, 239, 240, 210, and 200. So I think I want to crank this one up quite a bit and get it closer to that 375 range. So just going to go ahead and do that. So now with that fresh tune, it sounds like this. Really nice. Let's get the toms going. All right, we've got the 10-inch tom here, so this is just a small guy, but it does have a recommended frequency of 247 hertz at each lug and a fundamental frequency of 147. But it does recommend a tuning of 257 hertz at each lug with a fundamental frequency of 147. So let's go ahead and hear what we've got on this one. 219, 217, 217, 219, 219, 218. So this thing is in a very good range of tuning, which is why it sounds good to begin with, but it does say that it should be a little bit higher. So I'm gonna bump each one of these up to 257. And it actually says do the same for the top and the bottom on the toms. So let me just see what a quarter turn on each one of these does. Whoa. So that went up to 330 by doing that. So let's back that off. That might be a little bit high. $257 again. Okay, I'd say that that's close enough. We're all within about 4 or 5 of each other. Let's go ahead and match the bottom head. All right, so we're at 259 on this one. So let's hear what this one now sounds like all tuned up. Nice. Okay, so the next one we have is our 12 by 8-inch tom, and our recommended tuning hertz is 217. And I just went around this and tightened it up just a little bit because it felt a little loose, and it actually ended up dead on. So we're at 219, 217, 17, 17, 17, 16, 15. Let's just bump that one up, I guess, just a hair. There we go. So we're in range on the top. Now we want the same exact frequencies on the bottom at the lugs. So we're right in range. We're just a little bit high on all these, so I'm going to back them off just a hair. Okay, we'll call that good. We're within range. Let's hear what this one sounds like now. Real nice. Okay, so our final tom is the 14 by 14, and its recommended frequency at the lug is 172 hertz. So let's see what we got. So interesting, this one is tuned much lower than the recommended frequency. I don't know if that's a bad thing. Let me hear it without. I think I'm actually going to buck the trend of tuning to the recommended tune with this one and just tune it low and make sure that they all match. I like this kind of 70 hertz range with this small-ish floor tom. It actually sounds a lot bigger, and I think that's because it is tuned low. So let's just get it in a range that is equal on top and bottom. 70, 76, 74, 74, 76, 76, 75. So I think 74 is probably a good spot to aim for. Let's see if we can get that in range. These lugs are just about as loose as they can go. And that's honestly my preferred tuning for a floor tom. Usually we have a 16 by 16 or even in some cases an 18 by 16 inch floor tom. And that obviously is a larger diameter drum, which has a lower frequency. But this one, it accepts that low frequency really, really well. But just be aware that these are almost finger tight on the lugs. So I like how it sounds, so that's good. Let's go ahead and get the bottom side, the Rezo head, in range. So interesting. The previous owner of this set had it tuned pretty high on the Rezo head for this one, and I'm not exactly sure if that's what we want. So I'm going to try to match it and see if there's an appreciable difference in how this thing sounds, or if it just wants to have a really tight Rezo head, and that's just how it goes. But I want to get it back in that 75-ish range, maybe 80, a little higher than the batter head. But let's see if I loosen those all up. There, I think that's as loose as these lugs can go. Again, we're approaching finger tightness here, and I think that having somewhere in that 90 to 95 range should be okay. All right, let's hear what this thing sounds like now that we've tuned it up. Whoo-wee, that thing is deep. That's impressive. I might not feel terribly comfortable with that. I'm just gonna tighten each one of these up just a hair. I know that we just spent all this time with the TuneBot, but I think this one can be done a little bit by ear and by sight. There, I like that pitch right there. Nice and resonant and full. Okay, so we're not gonna tune the bass drum with the TuneBot. Again, I like to just get this finger tight and then tighten it just a little bit more than that to keep it as loose as possible. So I'm just gonna get the drum key on each one of these lugs to make sure that there's nothing crazy going on. But what I really wanna do is add some muffling to the kick. So next time you see me, we will have some muffling to add to the kick. So this is my very fancy baffling, a pillow that I probably picked up at a thrift store somewhere. But this actually works really, really well for a kick. It's the perfect length, or at least it was for a 22 by 16 inch kick. Maybe it might be a little short for my 18-inch pearl kick, but we're gonna stuff this thing into the kick and position it so that it's basically just touching the batter head and not touching the Rezo head. And I'll bet that will solve our kick boominess problem. Let's get her done. So this pillow is now positioned inside here up against the batter head. And we have a little bit of space between it and the reso head, so that should help out a ton. So the one thing that I can say about the previous life of this kit is that it had a good owner who knew how to tune a drum set. So there was just a little bit of tuning that needed to be done. So I don't think this is going to sound incredibly different, but we should have a bit more resonance on these toms. Plus, I think the kick is really going to sing now with that muffler in there. And by the way, I did check every single lug and they were perfect, just right on the edge of being too loose, which is right where I like my kick to be. So let's go ahead and play this kit now and see what she sounds like. Way better. I think that the kick has been improved the most, and I won't be able to tell until I go back to the recording and actually listen to it, but that microphone, I have a feeling, will be much happier with that bit of muffling in there. There's just too many transients, too many things booming around inside this big long kick drum. By the way, we do have an EMAD 2 head on the batter side, so there is a bit of muffling on this drum to begin with. So I didn't want to say that it's unmuffled entirely. Please note that there is an EMAD 2 which has a ring of muffling around the circumference of the head. I believe that's the case with the reso head too, but I don't know, I haven't checked. Maybe not. I don't know. But either way, we have that pillow in there, and just a small pillow will improve most kick drums immensely. So if you have just a naked empty kick, try throwing a pillow in there or a blanket or a sweatshirt. I've seen all kinds of things that people use to muffle their kicks, and it doesn't really matter what you use, just as long as there's something small, low, that can be put up against that batter head. I think the takeaway here is that if you have a nice drum kit, then it can take any tune. You can tune it high, you can tune it low. Just make sure that the individual lugs match as best as possible. And that's kind of the principle behind the TuneCore, is being able to tune those lugs to the same frequency and getting your own sound out of the drums as a result. By doing that, you basically eliminate the possibility of just cross sound waves canceling each other out, because sound waves are waves and they do this. And if they encounter a wave that's slightly off, then weird things happen. Sometimes the sound gets enhanced and it's louder and better. Sometimes it's quieter and canceled out. So you really have to just aim for the best and use your ears at the end of the day to tune your drums and make sure it sounds good to you. So let me know what you think. Did you notice an appreciable difference between the first and second option, the non-tuned versus the tuned option? I definitely did from behind the kit, but again, I haven't listened to the recording, so I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that through headphones and make some qualitative judgments based on that. But based on behind the kit, I think that it's a marked improvement, especially from the kick, and this thing is now ready to rock, and I'm gonna record some stuff with it probably right away. So let's go ahead and get that done. So let me know if you have any questions about the Pearl Masters Maple kit from 2008 to 2010 or so. That's what we've got behind us. I've been loving this thing so far. It's been a blast to play. And the next video that you can expect from me is going to be a comparison of this drum set to my 1980, a 45-year-old drum set, Tama Superstar set with the big sizes. We have a 24-inch kick, a 13, 14, and 18 tom arrangement. So this is going to be a complete different, there's not going to be a lot that's similar between these two drum sets, is basically my hypothesis. And that's because everything across the board is different, from construction to era to wrap versus lacquer to the sizes to die-cast hoops versus triple flange. So all of the above. Hopefully that'll be a fun comparison, and I don't know, maybe it won't yield anything impressive, but I think that it will be fun to pit those drum sets against one another. So stay tuned for that. So if you do like this content, please like and subscribe. That always helps, and I will see you on the next one.